Hello, Mike.
Hello, Steve. Thank you very much for taking the time today, sir.
Nice to talk to you.
Since we have limited time, I'll dive right into it. You're doing this tour, Foxtrot at 50, coming to the Wilbur Theater in Boston, October 12th, as well as Hackett Highlights. First of all, the live album sounds amazing. The band is incredible. What I wanted to ask you about is a comment that you may or may not have made, saying that your current band plays it better than Genesis did.
Well, I guess it's for others to say that, and I'm very pleased that people have said that. It's been mixed by Chris Lord-Alge, and I think he's done a great job of mixing it and making it really sound very, very powerful, which is lovely because I've always wanted to get a live album to sound as compressed and bright as this. You know, with all that multi-band compression, he's brought out stuff. Really, really, really great job. It does sound the best of all the live albums, and it's gone to number 2 in the British charts, the rock and metal charts. So I'm thrilled with that. You know, I'm not blasé about this. We're finally doing something right. You know what I mean? It's an extraordinary thing. When you consider that this is music that is 50 years plus ago, or some of it 45 years perhaps with some of the solo stuff. But I guess 50 years young, 45 years young, and I'm still recording new stuff at the moment. I've just finished a new album. There's a new one on the way, and I've also got some stuff in the can with Steve Rothery of Marillion, so there's going to be a lot of new product as well as this classic stuff out there. And I'm sorry if it means that people can't afford to get all these things in one go, but some of it, I have to say, is wonderful, and I hope people enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed making it.
I was watching a film on YouTube of Genesis at Shepperton in 1973. And it really is. You can see, you know, I know recently you talked about Eddie Van Halen and how you had influenced his playing. And you can really see it in that film. You can see the way you're playing. And I was wondering, I'm watching you guys play, and I'm thinking of also your contemporaries like Yes and King Crimson and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And I was wondering, people call this prog rock now or progressive rock, but what were you guys calling it back then when you were actually making it? Did you have a name for it at all?
No, I don't think we didn't have a name. We didn't think we were going to be pigeonholed as such. When we were first touring America, they called us theatrical rock, and that seemed to fit the bill for Alice Cooper, Genesis, many other bands. The term progressive wasn't in common use at that time. Progressive was a term that had been applied to, free jazz odysseys. Do you know what I mean? It was a different thing. But the term progressive, of course, goes right back to Edward Elgar, the dream of Gerontius being described by Richard Strauss. So the early 1900s, people were talking about progressive. So as a genre, I suspect it's probably changed, but I think it's probably pan-genre. It's something that takes in every style, but it has to be inclusive music. Therefore, there's no need to exclude moments of jazz and humor and rock and pop and blues and all those other things and world music, which is, after all, just regional music anyway. It just doesn't come from your hometown or mine.
Right.
But music that's just full of surprises the first time you hear it, that's really what we're after, I think.
I know in the 80s, if we can just call it progressive music at this point, kind of went under the radar. People weren't as accepting to it. Things like showy musicianship and showing how well you could play were frowned upon at some point. So during that time, when like punk and new wave and new forms of music were coming out, was there anything that interested you, that you found that you liked and maybe affected or maybe influenced your music at all?
Well, I remember at the time when I was in South America, early 1980s, and I remember when 90125 came out, and I got the album, and for me it was like a blood transfusion. I thought, this is stuff that's really thought about, it's really well played, the songs are commercial enough, to hit radio. Owner of a Lonely Heart was the thing that kicked it off. Now, subsequently, I got to work with Chris Squire quite a bit. We did an album together called Squack It. And I complimented him on that, and he said, we spent 9 months working on one song and fitted the rest around around that, which is quite, disparaging. But he was great to work with. I think, the idea of Genesis and Yes coming together, doing something. That wasn't the first time, because I'd had GTR with Steve Howe, so there was already a sort of a Genesis and Yes pairing at that time, and we had When the Heart Rules the Mind, which found favor with MTV, luckily, and recently I did a re-record of that with Steve Rothery of Marilyn, and that came out really well. So I guess all these bands, they all knew each other and started influencing each other, and some were riding high, and then others would say, maybe a band in this day and age can't afford to do that. But then, if it all gets pared down so much, the modern record that maybe doesn't thrill people of a certain age who expect something better, it's like the programmer and the singer. That's it. That's all you need. You don't need instruments. That's all you need. And but then I think guys like myself who grew up believing in the power of albums to change your life, that time when John Lennon said that he thought that Genesis were true sons of the Beatles. This is something he said in 1973 when we were doing Selling England, just a year after Foxtrot. So that era is a kind of golden era for the album, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's important, the bands that you mentioned the ELP, I think, and I think, did you mention King Crimson?
Yes.
And
yes.
Yes, of course. We were, I suppose we were like-minded in a sense. Maybe Genesis were a bit more songs-orientated, and ELP may have been more player-orientated, but nonetheless, there was something of extraordinary quality which came out of a whole bunch of British bands. It wasn't quite the Brit pop that was to follow in the 80s. I think it was ambitious music, and occasionally, of course, you could have great playing on a record, and also have a hit. Dating back to the days of what the Stones were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of the Stones. I'm thinking of Paint It Black. I'm thinking of there's some great playing. There's some great writing. It's got to be possible. I don't think that pop has to be watered down in order to appeal to radio, or else you start getting those conversations like I had with Tony Stratton Smith. He said, I'm tired of people saying, this is too good for radio. Well, maybe they said the same thing about George Lucas. Star Wars is too good, for to have a hit film.
Right.
It's not dumbed down enough. But I still believe in albums. What can I tell you? I think that music changed the world, and I think it's capable of changing the world again. But we've just got to get the right. We've either got to get the right radio station, or we've got to get the right song or the right performers to do all of that. But I would love to think that at some point there was a fight back of audio to be able to say, it doesn't all have to be a game show.
Right. Well, we're very much looking forward to seeing you and the band at the Wilbur Theater in Boston, October 12th. Will it be similar to how it's set up on the live album? Maybe a couple of changes here and there?
There might be a few changes, but I think it'll be generally similar to that, because I think that, that was a very sort of, it was a refined show, refined down to that bit, There are improvisations, of course. You get improv moments, so the band get to go off and strut their stuff, and that isn't exactly the same every night, but those moments are sort of, a little bit sort of palate cleansers between the big, the epic things like Watcher of the Skies and Supper's Ready. It's different, moments of bursts of energy.
Well, I'm looking forward to all of it. I love it when when musicians just show us what they got. To me it's a great pleasure. Yeah. So looking forward to seeing this show October 12th at the Wilbur in Boston. Steve Hackett, it's been an honor and a pleasure to speak with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.